I was just like, like turned around and he was going to hit me. And so I like ducked his hit, and then I hit him a couple of times, and then he fell back, and then he got up, right? And dude, I do remember this playing, like that happened. Now, was he actually trying to hit me? I don't know, right? I think he was. I really do believe that he was. But dude, he got up and he had a knife in his hand. And like literally, like I turned to run and he stabbed me right in my back, dude. Like, dude, that far away, about an inch away, 3/4 of an inch away from my spinal cord, man.
Well, welcome to the podcast, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. You want to introduce yourself to the world?
I'm Adrian. Let's see. How would I normally say this? I'm Adrian. I'm an alcoholic, but I'm Adrian, and I'm just here to share some hopefully experience, strength, and hope with you guys. Let you know what it was like, what happened, and how things are for me now.
Awesome. We were just talking about the K2 stories. I've never done anything like that. Not that I'm above it, right? It was just a little bit after my time.
Right.
Does it actually get you high like weed?
Nah, I don't
Does
think
it smell like weed?
Way beyond. Nah, I think they try to like give it some like aroma to it, but nah, honestly, I think it gets you like way more beyond what weed can do for you, right? But not in a good sense. There's like, in my opinion, from my experience with it, there wasn't much euphoria associated with it, right? It was just, like, okay, I feel different than I did. I'm not sure what the, is. So, nah, I would say there's really, this is just me. I'm sure that you'll have a lot of people who say otherwise, but I don't think there's really like any comparison to weed. It's just something
other than it looks like weed.
It's a powder though. It's normally a powder, and they'll spray it on stuff. They'll like coat the herb or whatever. It's not an actual herb, so it's completely like synthesized in a lab.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it is. It is. Believe me, there's absolutely nothing good about it.
That is a typical like drug addict that was like, it might get me high. I'll do anything.
Yeah, for sure. It will.
Yeah. Just not be the high you want.
What were we just talking about? We were talking about people in psych wards. I was talking about people were overdosing on it in prison, right? So it's like, really? You want to smoke something that doesn't even make you feel good that you're going to overdose on and turn into a, like a complete psycho? So, yeah. But, there was a time.
Yeah.
There definitely was a time.
I had an experience. You ever heard of angel trumpets?
I have heard of angel trumpets. Yeah, they grow around here.
Yeah. That's a no world to drive down.
Yeah, I guess I can say. See, I was fortunate enough to where I never let's just say I never got that desperate. I've seen them in yards and it was like crossed my mind, but I didn't. Probably why I never tried it was because I didn't spend enough time on the internet researching how to actually use it.
Yeah. No, me neither. My uncle was like, hey, I think those flowers will get you high.
Oh, geez. You just ate them?
Yeah, I didn't have anything else to get high on. So I was like, I remember what he said. And I went back and I just put the plants in my mouth and I was like, this ain't doing shit. I was at like a baseball park with other friends. Like another failed attempt at getting high.
Yeah.
So I was like, this ain't doing shit. So I get on my bike and I start to drive back to my aunt and just fade to black. I didn't remember nothing for the rest of the day. And, but some activities took place and
there was unforgettables, huh?
Yeah, that a lot of people were not proud of me about. So I was like, oh, it was scary. Like the next day I was like, I can't believe that did that to me. So, and then like when you wake up or you come to the next day and people are like, you know what you did? It's like the shame and embarrassment and guilt and the and then like pieces, fragments of the night start to like flash back and you're like, oh no, like the cops coming and
oh yeah. Reminds me of an old Sublime song, like wake up in the morning and everybody asks me what happened, or I ask everybody what happened and they say you.
Yeah. That's what it was like. And I was at my family's house and it was not a good pick. I wasn't allowed to stay there anymore. Say that. So, but anyways, welcome to the podcast, man.
man.
It's awesome
Glad to be
having
here.
you.
Yeah.
We had your lady on last week. Well, it won't be last week by the time this episode comes out, but
She was on.
She was on recently, and so it was a pleasure. You asked me to go speak at that place, and which was awesome. I really appreciate that, man. That was a lot of fun. I have not done that in a long time. It really got me thinking, because when I first got clean, I stayed at the homeless shelter, and I remember there used to be a meeting going into there, and I was like, I need to look into that and try to like see about carrying a message back into that homeless shelter, man. Because like, what better place, from like a place that I came from to like go in there.
It's actually not a homeless shelter. It's a part of my story. So
no, the place I was at.
Oh, I got you. I thought you were talking about.
I was at an actual homeless shelter.
Okay.
Downtown. Yeah. It's called the Salzbarker.
Yeah.
And that's where like my journey and recovery started like 15 years ago. So anyways, like me going to that, I was thinking last night, I was reading this book about another member that I'm going to have on soon. He's got a book written about his life. And I was like, man, I need to like go back over there and like, see, I'm sure somebody's carrying a message there, and try to get into it. But thank you for taking me.
That's where you first heard the message? Was there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it's still going on there, because, it's like little seeds here and there, and places like that are where the seeds can really get planted,
Yeah. So, when you're at rock bottom.
Yeah. And what's crazy, I remember like my story, I'm like, man, when you first come in, like ego, I got this crazy bad story. And I remember I had a guy come in there and share, and he was talking about like being homeless and getting stabbed. And like, a little bit further into his story, he's like, and then it got bad. And I was like, whoa. So, like that's not always rock bottom for someone, but,
yeah,
it's definitely a lot of people who land in that position should at least be at rock bottom. But, it's not always that case. There's always like one more in this.
Yeah. Yeah. What do they say? Rock bottom's when you stop digging.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Because you can always dig a little farther.
For sure. Yeah. I honestly, I look back on it now. Yeah, it was rock bottom. I was at rock bottom a few more times, but like I really wasn't, I didn't feel at rock bottom until like I had like escaped the grip. You know what I mean? And then I realized it was rock bottom, but it wasn't like I didn't have this like aha like moment that it was, man, you have to stop or this, right? Like I had it a lot, but it would be fleeting, so it wasn't any different than any other time. So it's not like, I was at rock bottom, my mind was made up, and then I came and, found the recovery, right? Like I kind of like fell victim. I got tricked into recovery. Mm-hmm. And then like, I realized like, oh, wait. Like I started to see things a little differently, and I was like, man, I was definitely at rock bottom. It's a good thing this happened.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I got what you're saying. So we'll start on a positive note. What's your clean date?
My clean date is September 5th, 2018.
September 5th, 2018.
Yep.
How many years is that?
That's a little over 4.
4.
It's like probably 4.5, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Yeah. But who's counting, right?
But who's counting, right? I'll give you the hours and the minutes and the.
That's a lot of time. It's some people they're always like so people, especially like earlier time when they're like 30 days or I only got 60 days or something. I'm like, shit, that is a lot of time. And not just saying that, like it depends on the scenario you're in. I think I shared the thing, like if you're in jail or if you're in the courthouse and the judge is like 60 days, pow, you're like, oh damn, yeah, that's an eternity when you're in jail. So, 4 years is...
Well, your first 60 days seems pretty much like an eternity, too.
It does.
Like, I got 60 days. It's amazing when people get it, because, like, without those first 60 days, you can't put on another 60 days and get the time. And I personally don't feel like I have any time. Like, I'm always waiting to, like, catch up to y'all, be where you guys are.
Yeah. Don't do that. It's a never ending journey. You find more, the longer you stay clean, if you're working a program, right, which that will ebb and flow. Is everybody that I know, it ebb and flows like your, investment that you put into your recovery. Nobody's 100% all the time uphill. You know what I mean? You find lulls and highs, but you do get more freedom over time like that. At least I'll say when I had 4 years, it was way different than 2 years, right? And maybe you can have some identification with that. And it's the same thing; it keeps going like that. But there's never like this pinnacle of recovery where you're like, oh, I'm fucking good. It just doesn't exist, or at least in my 15 years of experience, it does not exist, and people that I meet with 30 years, it still doesn't exist. You're still like, there's always something to work on. It's just like a new level of like, of understanding. You become, in the literature, it talks about the longer you stay clean, the narrower the path. So things that are okay for me to do at 4 years and 5 years and 6 years, they're not okay for me to do it. I feel more guilty or, convicted on doing things when I have a lot more time, so, but nobody wants to hear from me. They really want to hear from you.
I'm enjoying hearing from you, man.
I appreciate it. So where'd you grow up?
So I grew up here and, in Jacksonville, but I grew up out at the beach in Jax Beach.
Jax Beach?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was, people ask me where I'm from, and I was born in Pittsburgh, but I was 7-8 months whenever I moved down here. I don't really remember the move too much,
Yeah,
So, yeah.
no.
I mean, I'm from here.
Yeah.
So.
If you say I'm from Pittsburgh, that's kind of what the kids say. Cap.
Where did you live in Pittsburgh?
Cap.
Like, I don't know. My parents are from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I grew up out there, and as far as it goes for like, the type of upbringing that I had a good upbringing, right? My mom just passed away a couple years ago, but her and my dad were married, I think, for like 47 years or something before. Not to say there weren't patches. My dad was an alcoholic, but I was probably 9 or 10 whenever he quit drinking. So I didn't catch like the brunt of it like my brother and sister. They're older than me. I think they saw a little bit more of it. I think it might have affected my brother a little bit more than me. Like up to this day, I still like can see in him that he has like some like resentments, like held down. But so no abuse or anything. I know a lot of people that I meet in recovery, they have these like crazy like childhood, like this happened to me. And that's just not, that's not my story, right?
Did your dad, was he in recovery when he quit drinking?
Not. So it's kind of funny. He quit, right? He just quit. No program, nothing. Like my mom was gonna leave him, and he was just able to do it. But he like definitely dry drunk. He's if you ever watch this, sorry, Dad, but he can be like, he's kind of boring and just like wants to stay at home. And I remember whenever I got clean, right? And I was going to meetings and I started like meeting people and I started like doing like, and I was having fun. And, that's definitely like one message that I would like to get across is this is fun, like being clean and having friends and doing this deal. Man, I've had the best times of my life since then, right? But early on, my dad noticed it, right? At first, like, you're going to those, the same, conception that I had about it, right? Oh, those meetings. But you start going and it changes. You start hanging out with people. And then he saw me doing stuff. I'm taking trips with my friends. I'm always happy, right? I'm never just like, my night's not just, I just want to watch TV and be alone, right? And I'm like a recluse loner type person, but I was going out and doing things. And I remember my dad saying, he's like, man, now that I look at you, I wish I would have done that,
The attraction,
yeah. Right? And I definitely, like, the last thing I was trying to do was attract. I'm just trying to do me at the time, This is like when I got 6 months or something like that. So, yeah, he mentions it to me all the time about, man, it's great, because obviously helping other people and stuff, like taking on sponsees. And he's like, man, just like, because they come, I live with my dad right now, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll come over there and we'll do it, and he'll like, even he can see in them like the change from, a few weeks into a few months to like we're doing step work, and and it's like just he's like amazed with like the transformation that he saw in me and that he gets to see in other people, right? Because he pays attention to it because it saved his son's life. But
yeah. So that's interesting. So he's like, maybe I'll start going to meetings now.
he didn't quite make it that far. He's definitely he's set in his ways. He's definitely set in his ways. He's he's happy being left alone and doing his thing. I feel kind of bad for him. He had basically one friend, right? He had my mom. My mom passed away, and then he had another friend, and he just moved to Las Vegas to go be with his son. Right, his son's probably my age, maybe a little bit older. So he moved out there. So it's like he doesn't even talk to him that much. His daily routine is, because he used to always go shopping for my mom all the time. Like he would go pick this guy up, and then they would go to the stores and go shopping. And so now what he does, and this is like a daily ritual for him, he goes shopping, right, buy stuff that we don't even need. And then he goes and he looks at his friend's old house. He drives by it. He drives by an apartment where him and his friend used to live. And he drives by like the couple of houses where him and my mom first got places. And then he comes home, puts the TV on, and chills out.
He needs some hobbies. That's still really commendable, though. If you recognize that you have a problem with drinking, I don't believe that a 12-step program is the only way to Absolutely get clean and stay clean or sober or whatever you call it. And but like if you recognize I have a major problem and it's affecting my family, so even for you to quit and for your family and for your kids and whatnot, whatever his motives were at the time, and to be more present, hopefully, even if that means, because I can imagine without recovery, if you take away the drinking or the drugging or whatever it would be, your life would be not without like a fellowship to be a part of, it would be like a lot more mundane,
Yeah. As far as it goes with him, I just do want to say this. He's a hell of a guy. He's got a heart of gold. And I feel like I was maybe like talking bad and that his life is horrible. It's not, you said the word present. He's fully present and is always trying to be helpful to his kid, like family. So, but I definitely agree with you, right? Like the multiple times that I said, oh, this is my problem. I need to just take this out of the picture, right? Being drugs and alcohol. And whenever I did, I couldn't even stand it, right? Like I had all these problems that obviously, most of them came from myself. But like when I pulled the drugs out of the equation, dude, it was horrible. Like that was my coping mechanism, right? And when those were gone, I didn't have any life skills, right? It wasn't like, oh, the drugs are gone and now you're just like this magically great person. It was horrible. The worst times of my life. I don't want to say the worst experiences because I've done some pretty stupid stuff, like with drugs in the equation, but not having them and waiting, just like being there and waiting to be okay, it's just like the worst feeling in the world, right? Yeah. Like everybody, you listen to the outer world and they're like, oh, drugs are your problem, you need to quit, right? But they don't know that there's more to it. And so you think that you get like established in your head that I just need to stop using and then I'm going to be okay. And so when you stop using and you're not okay, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And you're like waiting and it just doesn't happen. And how do we know how to feel better? To use, right? And so, that's another reason I commend him, because I know it can't be much different for him.
Yeah.
Right?
he trudged through though.
Yeah. So, but I'll kind of keep going on a little bit too, and just like the backstory. So there was no real like inherent family problems, right? I remember, my brother, he started to use and stuff. And I idolized my brother, man. Like this dude, I just looked up to him in every way, shape, and form, right? So when he started using, at first it was just like being the bad kid because I saw it was cool in him. I thought he was cool. So I wanted to like replicate him, right? So I started being bad. I actually like I used to make really good grades, you know, and I'm you know, like elementary school, probably everybody makes good grades, but you know, I did too. And I got into middle school, and that's when, you know, there's a 5-year age gap, right? So when he was about 16, he started getting into smoking pot and all that stuff. So I just thought it was cool, and automatically, like, I wanted to do it, right?
So you was around 11?
I was, around 11, right? But it didn't start with that, right? I remember I was just like being a badass. Like, I'm so cool, you know, got my chain that I had the tape in the back on, and, you know, just like, I'm cool. You know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it was like getting me the attention that I thought, right? I just not sure that I ever felt a part of so much before I started, you know, and not that I really did then, but it helped. Right? It's how I coped, right? I was a badass. I was getting in trouble, and kids were looking at me. So it started there. And then I remember being at my friend's birthday party. He was probably turning 12 or something like that. And my buddy's sisters, they were older, right? So automatically older. They're cool. I want to be like them. They're drinking, and they bought us some beer, right? Because it was my buddy's birthday, and so we probably had like a 6-pack maybe a 12-pack between like 6 of us or something, and we were playing quarters, right? We're adults, we're cool, and dude, I got drunk. I did, like, and it was fucking horrible, dude. I started crying for no reason. I remember I was like sitting out on the curb, and everybody's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I don't know what's going on." The next morning, dude, get up. I want another beer. So it was like that for me, right? I thought it was cool. I felt cool. So like I had that I'm cool, and I don't have to worry about what people think about me, because that's another thing. Like, I've always just like, I still work on that today, right? Like, I'm worried about how people perceive me. You know, like what you may be thinking about me, what I'm thinking about that bothers me. Right? Because I'm never like, this guy thinks I'm the greatest guy ever. You know what I mean? Like, so that was like a thing where I just never really quite felt comfortable in situations. I'm sure you can relate to that. And, you know, that alcohol that first time, right? It like, I didn't think about that. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't thinking about what you thought about me. I was thinking about how this is making me feel good, and, you know, I'm like looking inside versus outside. And so, you know, that was my first time, and it should have been a red flag, but when you're young, there's no such thing as a red flag. You know, like, yeah, I'm not even gonna mention, I got family member that's younger that's staying with us, and I'm seeing him kind of, you know, like, bro, like, your grades were good. He's in high school, right? I know he's smoking pot all the time. It's starting to, but you're just smoking weed. It's not a big deal, right? Like, I didn't aspire to be a junkie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't what I was doing. I was just getting high because that was the thing to do at the time. You know, smoking weed, when I say getting high obviously took on new forms getting later. But yeah, so then that happened, and, you know, I had my introduction, and I pretty much, it turned into weekends, right? Like playing Hey Mister. You ever heard of that term? Where you go to the store, you know, and you gotta wonder, right? Like, I think about it now, like, a fucking loser's gonna buy a 12-year-old alcohol, but they will. People will, man. Yeah. You ask them, you know, and they're like, okay, that's what we do. We play Hey Mister, and we get St. Ides. We get quarts of St. Ides, and one quart used to like get us smashed, and that was our weekend. We'd like take turns staying the night at a friend's house and doing that. And yeah, so
we must be like the same. How old are you?
I am 39.
39. So I'll be 37 next month. So yeah.
So yeah, the same era.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Courts of St. Ives.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And so, you know, that was my middle school. My brother, he started like selling pot and stuff, so then I was able to like have the middle school connect on weed, and so I started doing that a lot. So by the time that I got into high school, dude, I was I wasn't set up for failure, right? Like I'm already trying to be a drug dealer, you know, like I was like getting acid too and all that stuff. And, you know, like between 8th and 9th grade, I don't feel like that's a healthy thing to take on, but that's what I was doing because like I wanted to be cool still, right? Like I still cared about what people thought about me. I could just go to that place and it didn't matter as much, you know?
What type of role models did you have at that time in life?
Dude, honestly, I was, like I said, I idolized my brother. I tried to spend as much time with him as I could, you know, replicating what he did, who he was, who I thought he wanted me to be honest with you. And so that was like basically the only role model. I mean, my dad, but, you know, my dad was being dad. It's hard to, I feel like he was working a lot, going out of town. He could be an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's dad.
Yeah. Not to mention like go back to the dry drunk thing, you know, that was, you know, pretty early on in his, when he had quit. And, so yeah, I definitely wasn't looking up to him. You know, I wish I would have more now, but I thought he was like, oh, it's funny. I thought he was stupid. I thought he didn't know, right? Because when you're younger, right, like it's so much different now.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's how I was with my parents, right? Like it's just different now. They don't understand. So, but my brother, he understood, and his friends, and so those were like, if you want to call them role models, they were who I had decided that I wanted to be like, right? I thought they were cool, and I wanted to be cool, so therefore I was gonna, you know, try to act like them. Yeah. So yeah, that was my that was my role models, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so going into 9th grade, let's see, that it got bad quick, I guess, right? I started, you know, I was selling weed. I lived like Fletcher High School. I don't know if you know where that is, out at the beach. I lived like there's a corner, there's these apartments right there, and then I lived in a house right across the street from there. Right. And my mom was a teacher. Oh, my poor mom. She was a teacher at Fletcher. Right. And so, you know, lunch break, after school, go to the house, you know, bring a bunch of kids. We're getting high, selling them stuff. I started like really getting into like Xanax and stuff in 9th grade. So I got like heavy into pills too then. And yeah, by the end of my 9th grade year, actually, 9th grade year, I didn't drop out yet, but I quit going basically, right? I basically was, you know, just, I somehow passed, right? Because like in the beginning, you know, like the progression, right? And it happens real quick when you're young. In the beginning of the year, I was able to get high in the morning, get high after school. And then as it progressed, you know, get high in the morning, get high at lunch, get high after school. And then, you know, you're looking at like the third 9 weeks or whatever. It's like get high in the morning, skip 4th and 5th period or whatever. And then like, you know, the last 9 weeks, it's like get high in the morning and don't go to school. Yeah. Right. And, you know, and that's it. And so obviously it translated into being even worse. That's 10th grade. Right. So like I started, I was working with my brother. He had a dock company, which he still does that. And I remember, you know,
what company?
A dock, built docks and bulkheads.
Okay.
Yeah. And dude, it's hard work. Oh my goodness. It is such hard work. But I was doing that, you know, on the weekends and then the summers. And it was great for me, right? Because did I idolize this guy, and this is what I saw. And, you know, he was into heavier drugs and stuff. And the people that I worked with there, they were into heavier drugs and stuff. And so I would, you know, I'd be doing that. And then I remember it was my my 16th birthday, right? And I, you know, at this time too, I had a buddy who was like the main weed guy. Like I was already to the point to where I did more than I could sell. You know? Yeah. So my whole story like involves like the, you know, distribution of drugs and stuff. But dude, I was the worst. Yeah. The absolute worst, man, because like I was more interested in getting high. You know, the money thing, the only reason I needed money was to get high, right? It wasn't, that was it. There was no other reason that I needed money. You know, I didn't, the power that you feel from, I just, I just, that didn't drive me. Wasn't a motivator for me so much. But yeah, so working with him, right? I remember, and I was not going to school, and my mom, I can only imagine what she's thinking, but it was my 16th birthday, and she told me, she was like, you either need to get your ass up and go to school, or you need to go withdraw. Because, she's probably got people stopping. Where's your son's in my class? How come he's not? Your son came to school and he can't even hold his eyes open. Your son smelled like alcohol this morning. We caught your son. I did get caught one time with pills and weed at school, and they didn't even take me to jail because of my mom. Right. So, my mom's probably just like, geez, figure it out or get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like, this is my job. And so I quit school, right? But I already had it. It's so funny because even my friends at the time, like the ones that were like, kind of right where I'm at, but I was still maybe a little bit worse than a lot of them. They're like, dude, this is not a good idea. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? I am quitting school to go build docks and bulkheads and make $10 an hour. I got the world by the balls, son. Like, go fuck yourself, you know? You're gonna tell me this is not a good idea. And dude, and I thought I had it, man. Like, I really did. Like, I just thought that at that point, like, this is all I needed in life. And it was. I ended up moving out of my parents' house. I moved in with a buddy of mine, and I was able to go to work and pay my whatever $200 a month or whatever it was to stay on the dude's couch, and I was able to get high, right? I was able to stay high all the time. And that's really, truly, I was 16. That's all I cared about at that time. I didn't care about anything else. I was already in the grips.
Yeah. What type of drugs were you doing at this time?
Man, I was a lot of pills. I was starting to get into cocaine a lot. Okay, so before I quit school and started working full time with these guys, I was doing a lot of smoking weed. Weed was just the thing, right? That was back when it was horrible weed.
Yeah.
The people who are probably watching this, they wouldn't even know when I talk about taking seeds out. What the fuck? Seeds?
What's a seed?
I mean, that's gold. But yeah. So a lot of weed, a lot of pills, and then acid, and I started getting into coke, and then also I kind of forgot rolls. Right, rolls were real big back then, and so I got really, really, really heavy.
Which is ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my big
beans.
Thing. The beans, yes. Yeah, you know about it. But yeah, so let's see. I started working, had the world by the balls, and then it just really quickly, right? It started to fade. My world that couldn't, the this is permanent, the way. And it was, I started doing more drugs, right? Getting into smoking crack because the people, I mean, you work
at 16.
Yeah.
Wow.
You working with construction workers, right? What do? I mean, I'm not saying they all do, but
don't put that on all construction workers.
That's not what I mean. The ones that I was working with, okay? But I mean, dude, it was, you're 40 years old at a job making $10 an hour. You know what I mean? It's you've probably got some problems in life. And those are the people that I started surrounding myself with. And they did, right? They had the problems that I was going to manifest myself into that I would never do, right? But yeah, so start getting into that, right? And it's that $10 and I might have even gotten a raise to $12 an hour or something, and it I'm getting kicked off at the couch of my friend's house, my best friend's house, because I'm not paying him any rent. I'm just acting a fool all the time, just it wasn't enough, right? And it wasn't to the point to where oh, I need to do less drugs and stuff like that. It was to the point to where okay, I have a serious problem right now. I have a very serious problem. I don't have enough money to get the drugs that I need to stay. And that was my problem at the time. So I started like being a thug. I'm a thug, you know, and just like robbing people and just doing like really, really, really stupid stuff, you know. It's kind of funny. Like I still had a conscience though. You know what I mean? Like I remember I got arrested for like stealing clothes at a Steinmart. Like I put like $500 on Xanax, right? I put like $500 worth of clothes on my arm and I'm like running out the store and my buddy's like, dude, I'm gone. And then I ended up going to jail, right? And I got this program where I went on this canoe trip and I remember I met this dude and I like became like great friends with this guy on this 30-day canoe trip that I got in trouble for. I wish I could do something like that again, right? Yeah. And so we get out and he's buying like getting pounds of rigs, you know, not the good stuff. And then like I'm hanging out with my other buddies from Jack's Beach and they're like, let's rob them. And like I really didn't want to, but like at the same time, like I wanted to be cool. So I'm like, all right. And I ended up robbing this guy. And it was crazy because I felt so bad, man. Like I literally like called this dude up and gave him my share.
Wow.
Bro, I'm sorry, you know. So I mean, you know, I guess I wasn't all, I mean, you know, I guess you're a piece of shit if you're robbing somebody, but I did have a conscience. I still had a conscience.
Yeah.
But
you gave the guy your cut.
I gave the guy my cut of the, which it should have been all mine anyway, you know, but I mean, it was somebody's idea. Somebody drove. So we like split it up like 3 ways and
Wow.
Yeah. And I ended up like, we went out there and I gave it to him and then I ended up staying there. He was having a party at a hotel and then he took me to the dude's house. This is just how naive you are at that age, right? And how all I cared about was drugs and there were some girls there, right? And I would like, you know, like I'm gonna maybe get some pussy even though nobody wants to fuck with me because I'm always like, all the time.
Yeah.
And so we go to his friend's house who like the dude whose money it was. And like, I remember
talking to him like,
I remember his dad was like, that's the guy who robbed you. And he's like looking at him and looking at me and just, you know, like waiting for him to just, dude, it was all their friends. I like but nothing happened. I got lucky.
Wow.
I got lucky, dude.
Yeah.
I got very lucky. So yeah. So, you know, that was just like one, but I ended up going to, when I was 17, right? This lifestyle went on. I mean, it just, you know, it got bad, right? The drugs got worse. I'm probably I am a heavy cokehead by this time. I wasn't like always smoking crack at the time, but I would from time to time, you know, just because when I'm trying to like always do more and get more and, you know, like get out of myself more. And I ended up, you know, I was robbing people all the time, like at gunpoint, and I robbed this dude. It was weird. It was driving someone's car and I hit a curb and we got a flat tire. It's like funny looking back on it now, but you know, not at the time, right? Xanax in the equation again. And these kids come up and they start talking to us and we're like, oh man, y'all want some rolls and we're going to sell y'all some rolls. And dude, it was like, I used to lie about it and tell people they wanted 100 rolls, right? But they wanted like 2 or 3 rolls or something, like no money, dude, like $45 or something like that. And we said we were going to meet him here. And I pulled a gun on him, right? And then I was like, okay, you know, hey. And then I went to go, right, and keep in mind the gun was unloaded, right? So just like really stupid. And I went over to the car that the kid, so there was like a group of their friends, he got out to like make the transaction. I pulled the gun on him and then I walked over to there, and the people that I was with, they're like, what are you doing? Come on, you know? And I was like, give me what you got, you know? Yeah. And then they left, and then the people that I was with left. So it's like me and this dude there. And it's like, and I'm like talking to him. Oh, hey, dude, what's up? You know, like, yeah. And like, he's my friend or something. I don't know. And I don't know. He had something on him. I don't know. It was brass knuckles. I don't know if it was a pipe or something. But he clocked me in the back of the head. Right. And dude, I think he thought it was going to knock me out. Like, I really did. But it didn't. And all I heard was ringing like, and then I realized I got hit, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I was so mad. I'm literally like, thank God the gun was unloaded, to be honest with you, because I would have fired off at this dude. I was so mad. And I was so stupid at that time. I was like thug life to where it would have made sense to me to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And I chased this guy up and down Jack's Beach, dude. Like, dude, 20 blocks one way, 20 blocks the other way. I'm trying to find this kid. And I end up at the Waffle House. You know what the Waffle House is? Like in the beach and 3rd Street. And I end up there, and somehow or another, the cops got called. And, you know, and I'm out there, and I'm, dude, like, just my whole side of my face is bloody. And I'm like, my whole shirt and stuff, because this dude clocked me, bro. He got me good. Good for him, right?
Yeah.
And
he's trying to save his life.
Not at that point, because he could have just walked away from me. He was just trying to get me, but he did. I'm good. I would have done this. Hey, I deserve it. 100%. Good for me. Good for him. You know, and it helped. You know, in a sense, it helped probably save my life, right? But yeah, so I'm at the Waffle House. Somebody called the cops, but the ambulance came because they couldn't, like, I think they were waiting for those kids to come ID me, but they didn't even need to, right? Because the ambulance people are like, and they're like, oh, you need to come with us. And I'm like, no, I'm good. They're like, dude, you need stitches. And I'm like, nope, I'm good. Because I had a gun in my waistline, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm walking away, dude, and literally the gun goes and just falls onto the ground, dude. And I'm like, and there's like all these, and I'm like, and I like kick it underneath a cop car. And of course, 2 seconds later, I'm on the ground in handcuffs, and like they were watching me. But yeah, so I got 18 months for that, right? And a
wow,
level 10.
just 18 months.
Yeah, I got super lucky. I got really lucky. The story that my lawyer, who my parents paid for me, right? So that's another reason that it could have been a lot worse, right? Like, I've always back to the good upbringing, my parents that cared, and so that's like a good thing for me, right? But he said he played golf with my judge, because it, like, that time, if you're 16 or 17 and you have a gun charge, you're supposed to get moved up to the adult system, but they kept it juvenile. So I went to what they call like a level 10. And yeah, it's crazy. You know, while I was down there in that level 10, that was the first time that I really, like, I thought I recognized that drugs were the problem, right? Like, drugs are the problem. That's it. Like, it's not that you don't have enough money, bro. It's that you're using drugs. So I knew the solution. The solution was to take them out, right? Like, take drugs out of the equation. And I was dead set on that. I got a lot of stories in there, but I'll not, there's a lot of other ones too, right? So I'll just kind of leave that. But while I was in there, I got set up with this place called, I got the highest score on the GED in there. So like the newspaper wrote some like article like about, it's kind of funny. I had like a perfect score on the GED, but their article was how bad their school systems were down there because somebody in jail got the highest grade. And then I graduated like valedictorian from that place and like made this big, it was like, it was a big deal. And I got hooked up with this place called Youth Outreach Foundation. And they literally, they gave me a car. Like when I got out, I did my 18 months. They gave me a car. They were paying for my college. They got me, I was going to FSCJ where I work now, right? But they got me into the college and stuff like that. And they were paying for everything. I had a full ride. It was, you finish these 2 years here and you can go to any college you want to and we'll pay for it, right? And so I get out of jail and I was in there 18 months. My last 6 months was the only time that I didn't use while I was in there. But I knew that I had a problem with drugs and I had to quit using, right? But I remember I got out. The first thing I did, I went to a party at my brother's house. He was having, it was like Christmas Eve or something. They let me out like a day before Christmas or something. So I went down there. That's what it was. And I wanted to stay. I feel bad for my parents now. Like they were the ones that were there for me. They came and saw me like every 2 weeks, were giving me money, And then as soon as I get out, I like want to hang out with my brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't think that I was gonna do drugs, dude. I really didn't. But like I'm around people, and I don't feel comfortable, man. And dude, that's the story of my life. I'm around motherfuckers and I'm worried about what they're thinking about me. And instead of just like being comfortable and being able to be myself, I'm just like, and I feel it's, man, I'm sure that people who watch this who have this problem are going to understand what I'm talking about, just not feeling comfortable in any situation, no matter what it is, and it was another situation that I didn't feel comfortable in, and I knew how to make myself feel comfortable, but it was only going to be one time, right? Because I wasn't privy yet to the phenomenon of craving, as we call it, the excessive compulsion of what y'all call it, right? I didn't understand any of that. I just thought still I got away from it. I'm a strong dude. I mean, look how I did good here. I should be able to do this and put it down because I got a lot to look forward to, right? Like I got a future that I'm building upon right now. So if I use this, I'm obviously going to have to stop. And I understood all that. So I used it, and it just like, I was going to college, but that didn't last. I think I did one semester. Then I basically like got back in trying to sell drugs, trying to, do all this stuff. And so, I'm just gonna like fast forward some years now, right? I definitely got right back onto where I was. I was doing the same stuff. I guess gratefully, I didn't get back into robbing people. But I went back to building docks, doing that stuff. And, it's like just it progressed, right? Like I definitely was smoking like a lot of crack at this point. But anyway, crack. And then that's when the oxys were out, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Oxys, like, still to this day, man, like all my people growing up, dude, they all they died on oxys. I still know more people that have died on oxys than like car wrecks or anything naturally combined. It might be getting close now with like people I know from cancer and stuff like that, but a lot of my friends growing up fell victim to the oxys, man. Like, a lot of people you wouldn't even expect, right? Just like, what, really? But so I end up getting a job at doing turbines, right? So I'm back to the point to where I can't afford to live what I consider comfortably, right? I have a kid at this point, and it's crazy because like the light bill wouldn't be paid. My kids wouldn't have diapers. This is it's fucking nuts, right? But I would have like pills or cocaine or something, right? Like I would be able to cope with how bad I was making it for everybody else. But yeah, so it's just like you think about the insanity of it and you don't realize it. It seemed so normal to me that this was normal, And but I ended up getting a job that like paid me really good and I would travel. And so it worked out really good for me because I would have these times of like where I was only drinking and like smoking weed, and I'd go on the road and make good money, and I was sending money back to my girlfriend at the time. And we ended up like moving out of this neighborhood that we were living in and moving into like, a little bit, everything's a little nicer, right? Like I didn't have a driver's license, but we had cars, like we had vehicles, like we could afford to do some things. And, and I was back to kind of how I had felt when I was 16 and I quit school. And I had enough money to where like I could, because everything, my whole life, no matter what, it revolved around getting high, right? I wanted that job so I could have more money to get high. That was it, right? Like as an added bonus, vehicles, house, diapers, food, right? That's the added bonus to all this. But the real, like the whole like what I was trying to really squeeze out of it was, I could do the drugs that I wanted to, right? And so I get this job and I get the time in between, and I pride myself on not not doing drugs before work. And this is like a new concept for me, right? Like this is huge for me to go somewhere and to take it seriously enough to where I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't smoke, I would literally go to work sober, right? And so that's probably why I progressed and like made it up the ladder so fast. But as with everything else, right? I ended up having another kid. And so just to like throw that in the equation, right? So now I've got 2 kids, I've got this job. I ended up being supervisor working on steam turbines. And, it's weird. It's like at that point, right? Like I started making more money, right? And this is how the story goes for me, right? Like the more money I made, the worse it got. Where you'd think it would be the other way around, the more, but there was like maybe these like brief intervals of like a breath of fresh air of like me trying to quit and then getting all the ducks lined up again. You know what I mean? But then I'd crash them down, always. It's like, it didn't matter how much I had amassed, accumulated in my little stints of trying to do better in life. Understanding that there's a problem and that I need to do something about it, and thinking that the solution is to stop using, and that's all that the solution needed to be, right? But I told you, when I stopped, right, my life got worse. It did. It didn't get worse out here, but it's not out here that matters. It's in here.
Yeah.
This how I'm feeling is all that's really important to me, right? Maybe not so much anymore, but especially at that time. Right.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how selfish you are, to say that even it even sounds selfish, but that's how I was. Right.
Yeah.
Like okay that I got this. Oh, the reason that I got this is because I'm hoping that it makes me feel better in here.
Yeah.
The reason that we got this other car, I want to feel better here. The reason we're in this nicer house is because I want to feel better in here. Right. But it's not. And then, I'm still uncomfortable in situations. It doesn't matter. Right. And then so you take the drugs out of the equation, dude. And it's just like, it was just, dude, it was living hell for me, man. It really was, because I had no coping skills. I was just like a little, like a hermit crab. They talk about hermit, and I would just like always just want to be in my shell, and I felt bad. So yeah, it definitely, those little stints, they were good out here, but they didn't mean anything, because where the change was needed, it wasn't happening. So, yeah. So I get into doing, I like 30s Roxy's. I don't know if you remember when those were real popular.
Yeah.
I got into those a lot. Like doing opiates. I got real big into opiates. And then, with my job, I started doing heroin. Right. And that was like, you can say what took me to my knees, because up to that point, right? And I heard this at a convention one time. This lady was speaking, and she was like, I'm a goalpost user, like when it first started with me, right? Like I never did cocaine. So like, I don't have a problem. You have a problem. You're a loser, right? You're doing cocaine, right? But then when you do cocaine, it's like, oh, well, I haven't smoked crack. I'm not a fucking loser. That guy's a loser. Look at him. He's smoking crack, right? And, and dude, for a long time, I had, that I never used a needle, right? I was like, I would have a crack pipe in my mouth and be quick to call you a junkie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but that was just like my goalpost, right? And I'd keep moving it back and keep moving it back. And I finally, like, I ended up using a needle, right? And, so, at the time, no big deal. Just move and like very fast, man, it progressed into, my family was like tormented, right? I was doing good at work, but even that, like it got real spotty. I'd have to have methadone or Suboxone or whatever to go on the job. And, the first week of the job, like I'd be, I'm the supervisor, and I'm like, not like, oh, I'm the supervisor, but like, you're like in charge of people and delegating work and making sure that people are doing this work safely, and, communicating with the plants and working with the engineer. And, not that that's like some, oh, great thing, but you have this responsibility to do, and it requires you to be there. And I'd be like, sleeping in a damn tool trailer or something. Or, talking to the engineer, and I'd be like, oh,
nodding out.
Just completely nodding out, man. And, so it like progressed into all that. And, it just, I don't know what else to say. It got like to the point to where life was so unmanageable, and everything that I did, I was such a slave, man. I was such a slave to that shit, dude. And, you know, and if it wasn't that, it'd be something else. I mean, not to say that I like cut everything else out, but that was my numero uno. Like I had to have this fixed, and then, you know, meth, and cause meth started coming into all that stuff. So, yeah, it's, my family, I'll talk about all this, I'll go into this cause this was like a huge part, right? So now I think I'm like, you know, 34, right? So a lot of time has lapsed. There's a lot of chaos in there, but you know, we've got a, you know, some time constraint here.
Yeah.
And dude, I like right around all this time, my family is moving to Colorado. They're leaving me, moving to Colorado. And I'm like barely getting as many jobs. Just it's slowing down, work slowing down. I remember that summer, man. I was working for my brother, and I was doing docs. Let me just say that, right? And like literally, I was working and getting paid in heroin, dude. Like that was it. I didn't get any money, nothing, and you know I'd be sleeping on like a bed with no sheets on it, right? Like I wasn't on the streets though, right? I still had that goalpost. I wasn't on the streets, you know what I mean? And just fortunate that I didn't end up there. And so, yeah, I mean, that was like literally like I was completely just, I don't know, a slave. I said it before, but just everything in my life revolved around getting high. I woke up, it was, what am I going to do to get high? My day progressed as in, what am I going to do to maintain this? Or if I haven't gotten it since I've woken up, what am I going to do to get this? Right. And then as I go to bed, how is tomorrow morning going to happen? Right. Yeah. And it just stay locked in that. And I know, you know what I mean? And it's just, you know, the hamster wheel, it just never stops, never, you know, it just, and it's like fucking chaos, dude. It really is. And so I go on this job. And this is my family left me, right? I'm going on this job. I'm in Panama City, Florida. And dude, it was bad, right? I was doing I was doing meth a lot at that point, right? I wasn't doing heroin, you know, I was doing so good in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't doing heroin. And I was like, literally, man, this is kind of funny. I've had times like where you're like the carpet guy, you know, like real quick, whenever I got promoted to supervisor in on the turbines, right? And I guess maybe by the time I got to that point, I wasn't as, you know, I'm not doing drugs or whatever. Dude, I remember, but I was in Hearn, Texas, and we stayed in hotel rooms, right? And I remember, dude, I went to work one day, and my calves, dude, I couldn't even hardly walk. My calves were so sore. Because, you know, I'm like you, I'm kind of short, right? Mm-hmm. And the peephole in my thing was up here. So I had to get on my tippy toes to look out of the peephole, dude. And I would like, you know, take a hit of crack and then I'd be stuck in the peephole, dude. And I did that for like, dude, 15 hours straight. Just in my, so, yeah, dude, I couldn't even hardly walk though, man. But yeah, so, you know, back to let's see, where was I? Where was I? Got my job. Oh, I go on this job. Panama. Yeah. I'm in Panama City, and you know, and that's when I'm like doing meth. So I'm staying up, you know, like I'm literally like not even sleeping, and I'm going to work, and I still got the same position, right? And dude, I remember, but I had like mounds of, like, not mounds, but you know, probably like an 8-ball or something like that. So you like, I was just snoring at the time, and you'd crush it up, and it wasn't a big deal. And I remember, dude, seeing like a little chunk on the carpet, right? And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, oh, and I like pick it. I was like, you know, I'm like, damn, dude. I would literally, ever since that happened, man, like I'm on this job and I can't even be at work because after that happened, I ended up on the carpet and I'm like crawling around and like, you know, examining like picking stuff up, man. And dude, I'd be at work and I couldn't wait to like get off work and go home and pick through my carpet.
Yeah. At least you wasn't in the peephole.
Dude, yeah. Nah, not that time, man. Yeah, right. Could have been worse. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, so then on that job, and then that was normal to me. And just a lot of craziness. So I get back on heroin out there and go from that job to there's so much craziness that happened there, but go from that job to another job, right? And the whole goalpost thing, right? Like I still got this goalpost, right? Because like my job, like I had this position at this job and I'm this. And, if anybody asked me anything about myself, I would tell them about my job, right? Oh, I work on steam turbine. I'm so important. And I had that still, right? So like, no matter what, junkies aren't such losers, right? Crackhead, not such losers, right? Like people who work at anything that's less than me, they're losers, right? But so I had my job, and my whole identity was built around this. And I went on the next job, and dude, it was like I'd be mixing up shots of meth and heroin, right? And that was like my wake up and like such an important guy, and I'd like mix my meth and heroin and shoot that shit and go to work. And I got called in, and so the guys that I work with, like I worked at that company for like 10 years, and it started out, it's still kind of a smaller company, but it started out real small. I worked my way up into supervisor. Like I helped, like I felt a part of with that company and stuff like that. The guys that were there, like 10 years of a relationship's a long time, right? And they were worried about me, right? And they called me in, and I mean, literally though, I'd be talking to the plant personnel, like I said, and I'd be like, no, that's really what they're worried about. Like, dude, we're gonna lose this job, right? And so they call me in there, and they're like, hey, man, you need to just not use before work. We don't care what you do outside of work, just don't use before work. And dude, I was like, the motherfucker. How dare they, But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, all right, they're probably right. So, but I had to figure it out, because like I was saying, everything revolved around the use of drugs, everything, right? Yeah. And so there was no way I could not at that point get up and go to work without using. It just wasn't going to happen. You want to talk about a bad day? That would have been a bad day, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I'm just going to do a little less this morning. And I did. Like, I put a little less of this and a little less of that, and and thought I had them fooled. And I got to work, and they fired me, right? And this is a bad day right here, right? So I get fired from my job, and then I also at that point ran out of heroin, right? So then I go to this hotel, and I meet this hooker, and I'm like hanging out with her. And I'm trying to get like, hey, can you get me this and da 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 da. And she's like, oh yeah, I can get you that. And I'm in like, I don't know, dude, like I don't remember the name, some backwoods Alabama, right? I was at a paper mill out in Alabama in the middle of nowhere, and but you can always find the places, Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and like she's like, here, do this, and like gives me a big old like smoking some meth, and I'm like doing the hit, and then pow. I'm like, damn. And there's this big dude, and he's got a gun, and he just starts beating me with it, dude. And he's like, gets me on the bed and has it to my head, and he's like, give me all your money. And I'm like, oh, bro. And he's like, I'm like, stop fucking hitting me. I'm like, I'm going to get it for you, man. I had $40 on me. It's crazy. That dude did all that for $40. So, I get fired and robbed that day, right? Wow. It's just like a hold your head low, but I just could not wait to get home, right? My buddy, I'm making him wait. I get robbed, and then I hang out with the hooker after. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just stupid shit. But yeah, so couldn't wait to get home. And so I get home. And so this is like the first time I'm back home now, staying at my house without my family, right? So it was like, it felt really, really lonely. My brother he just went to prison. He was staying there, like he ended up staying in the house that I was in, kind of a longer story, but he was in there. His girlfriend was there, like she was waiting to go to do her stint. And then I met this, I started like getting, because the person, just say, went to jail who I was getting all my stuff from, right? So I was gonna like take over, and I had some money, and I started like doing that, and then I, but like Backpage, if you know what that is, you know what that is, right? And so I ended up meeting this girl on there, right? I mean, that's what you do, but
Yeah.
And so it's just this is kind of another crazy story. Like this girl who I went over, like I was getting because that was like how I got my clientele, right? It was from Backpage, and I ended up like going over and hanging out with this girl, and then I like did a bunch of my shit, and I fell asleep, and then she went through and did a bunch of my shit, and then I ended up like making a huge scene about it. I'm at their house, like it's a house with a bunch of girls, and I'm at their house, and I make like this huge scene, and then the dude that I was getting my stuff from like came over, and like somehow or another, the girl that I was with that stole from me and me, we left and went back to my house, and then like she moved in with me, and we had started a relationship, right? So this is my girlfriend now is a Backpage girl, right? But she wasn't doing that. She would just rob people, right?
Yeah.
Somehow or another, I don't know if I believed it or not.
Yeah.
But
believe what you want to believe when you're
yeah. I mean, yeah. So, and that it turned out like I'm living in a pretty decent neighborhood, right? It was the house that I had gotten,
for your family.
Yeah. And so I'm there, and this like, dude, we just turned into like a trap house. But then, as always, I end up doing stuff. So it's not a trap house anymore. It's like I had like girls move in, and then it became like a board, whatever you call it, with tricks, and then that even like fizzled out because we were so bad. And then we were doing this. This was like our scam, right? That she would get people to come over. She'd be on Backpage, and they would come over, and then they'd give her the money, and then she would tell them that she just got arrested like a week ago, and she's an informant. But and that she I can neither tell or you can leave.
Yeah.
And then we'd be doing that. It was crazy. My house ended up getting shot up from that, right? Some people, they didn't believe it, and I don't blame them, and they came back and shot my house up. And so my house is on the news, right, about being shot up in this location, and it like makes this big thing. And my neighbors, oh my God, they hated me. I had some people moving, just, man, the
chaos.
Yeah, like my whole front, keep in mind, nice neighborhood, right? My whole front yard is like all these people's furniture who were gonna move in. It was just crazy, man. So yeah, and while I was there, this is like where it, so much crazy stuff happened. But as far as it goes for like with the story, and like where did it all change for me? I think it was this, right? I had one of my buddies staying over there, and he had fallen asleep, and I was like cooking some meth in the back room. It's crazy. I was cooking meth back there. My buddy had fallen asleep, so my girlfriend and this other dude that like she knew from the streets that was over there, they went and stole money out of his pocket, right? And then I had to connect at the trap house. So they're like, hey, man, we got this money. Let's go over there. And so we're like, all right. And we called this taxi, which we never had any intentions on paying because we didn't have enough to pay for a taxi and to get the dope, right? So they take us over there. And then when we get over there, the dude, like, they closed down from like 3 to 6 or something. I don't know. Like, it was like official business trap house, right?
Yeah.
And they're like leaving. They're like, sorry, but I know I told you to come over, but you took too long. You got to go. We can't serve you. So I was like, damn. So then we're going back, and we stop at the Circle K Kangaroo, whatever. It's on whatever. Not even important. I can't even think of the road. Edgewood and Post right there. I don't know if you know. There's like a store right there. And we go in, and like the money we have, we want to use for dope. And this kid that we're with knows a guy, but he'll only come out for $50. And dude, it's like we're in there, like literally, like we make drinks, we take sweets, we shove our pockets, and we walk out, like just retarded ass stuff, right? Still,
yeah,
we didn't have money to pay for food either because we had to get. And so the guy comes out, right, and I feel like the story was that I really don't know. I'm not 100% on this, right? I'll tell you what I think the version is. I'll tell you my version of what I kind of was able to piece together. But the guy was going to come out and, sell the $50 worth, but they were going to say that I was going to pay him later. It was $20 is what they stole. We had $20. All this is over $20. And so it's like, all right, and the dude gets in the car, and then I don't know what happened because I wasn't in the car, right? But then he gets out, and this is where it's like it's shaky, right? It's like, I don't know. I remember him being behind me, and then I was just like, I like turned around, and he was going to hit me, and so I like ducked his hit, and then I hit him a couple of times, and then he fell back, and then he got up, right? And I do remember this point, like that happened. Now, was he actually trying to hit me? I don't know, right? I think he was. I really do believe that he was. But dude, he got up and he had a knife in his hand. And like literally, like I turned to run and he stabbed me right in my back, dude. Like, dude, that far away, about an inch away, 3/4 of an inch away from my spinal cord, man. So, wow, dude, yeah. Talk about lucky. And I luckily at that point, that was 5 years ago, or just maybe 6 now, something like that. Shands was like the level trauma place and they even said, they were like, dude, if this place wasn't so close, you'd be dead. You would be dead. But this, I remember, so
he stabbed you once and then took off.
Yeah. Yeah. He stabbed me once and then took off. But dude, it when he hit me, bro, I just like fell to the ground, right? Somehow or another, I was on my back. I couldn't move. I didn't realize it at the time what was going on, right? I was just, dude, I was like, help, and then the cab drivers, the ones that were waiting for their money, were actually the ones that called. And, and I remember like, I'm pretty sure the cops got there first, right? And I'm like, I've been stabbed. They're like, where you been stabbed? In my back. And I remember they like pulled out their gloves and put them on, and they lifted me up. And I remember looking down, dude, and it's like, it's not like the movies, right? The blood like stayed behind me. It didn't like all ooze out like it does in the movies, And when they picked me up and I looked down, I was like, oh shit. And they were like, oh man, we got to get him to a hospital, right? I was like bleeding out pretty good. And then I remember the ambulance got there, and they were cutting up my pants leg. And then I woke up like a day or two later in the hospital, which that was crazy too, waking up in there, right? Because I was like, it was like in a room, like, I don't know, I was in ICU, and I had the thing down my throat.
He was intubated.
Yeah, whatever, right? Yeah. And you know more about this stuff than I do. And I remember the lady, she was like a short, heavier set lady, dude. It completely to this day reminds me of Poltergeist. You ever seen that movie? Caroline, right? And this lady's like, Adrian, you need to breathe. And I'm like, what the fuck is getting in? Like the room's dark, and she's like, Adrian. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Where am I? And so they went to first time they took it out, I wasn't breathing, so they had to put it back in, and then like an hour or two later they took it out. And so I ended up being I was paralyzed, honestly. Like my left side was like, I couldn't move that shit, dude. I didn't know, like, especially from like here down, I couldn't move my arm and stuff. And it ended up killing me, right? Like I guess I died and they had to bring me back. And so, but at the time, all I was worried about was, right, like I stayed in there. I knew there was a problem. And I remember, once I left there, my girlfriend was coming in and like bringing me dope, right? Like I had DT so bad that I was like, dude, it was like the craziest thing, man. I would like grab the side of the bed, the hospital bed, and I'd be like, my wrist would be like all the way back here. And it was just like, man, it was rough. It was the worst DTs I've ever had. And I remember the hospital lady was like, dude, you've got to quit. You're going to break something. Like, I'm like, I can't. And I couldn't move my leg, and it was bad. And then they ended up putting me on, I don't know, what's the protocol for DTing?
Oh, there's Librium or
Nah.
Ativan.
No, it was something.
There's
else.
different stuff that doctors use.
It's like an old horse tranquilizer or something like that. I forget what it was. It was powerful though. It was but anyway. So I did that, and like literally like in like 10 minutes, I was just like, And then my girlfriend that I think I'm never gonna see again, right? She's out running the streets doing her thing, shows up there with some dope. So I'm doing that while I'm in there. And then, but I leave and I go to stay with my parents, right? And I'm like, man, I need to get my life on track. And I'm back to, I have a problem. The problem is opiates. It's heroin. So I'm like smoking and drinking and just trying to manage that. And I remember, but I was still like, I love this girl for some reason. And I remember she called me and she was like, hey man, I want to get clean like you. Like I'm clean, right? Like, and I'm like, oh, and she's like, I want to go to Gateway, right? You know what Gateway is?
Yeah, I used to work there.
Okay. So like, I want to go to Gateway, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'll come get you and take you, right? So I have a buddy pick me up. I go to this hotel where she's staying at, and I'm like gonna save her, I'm gonna go get you. And when I get there, she's like, all right, let's get ready. But one last time, do you want to do a shot before I go? And I was like, fuck it. All right. Like, where was this resolved? You know what I mean? Like, it was like, didn't even think. I'm just like, okay. And I remember doing it, dude. And then I remember like when I came to, I was on the stretcher, right? And I was like down, like at the bottom already. Like normally, because unfortunately, I've overdosed like a handful of times, right? And I had to get Narcan, but it's usually like one shot of Narcan in your back. And I'm like waking up on the floor where I did it. But this time I was in the stretcher and I was going down. I was like at the bottom. And I just remember being like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, not again. Yeah. Like, how did I get here again? Yeah. What? Like, just that pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization is how we call it, right? Like, just to like, man, I know I have a problem. Why can't it stop? Why? It's always back to here every time. And so I feel like as far as it goes for moments of clarity, that may have been my first, like, man, this is real. This is fucking real. And I am sick with it and I cannot stop it. I'd like to say that, it ended there, but I AMA'd out of the hospital, went on another like 2-week run. And then, it's crazy. Like I had a fucking, I didn't even tell you, I had a walker because I couldn't even walk from getting stabbed yet. You know what I mean? And it's like, I had to learn how to walk again, all that. And so it's like what I'm like doing all this with, right? And then I'm in hotel rooms and I can't even walk and living with this girl. And she would like have people come over that she was going to rob. And I'd have to like go out on the side of the hotel with my walker and just like insanity. You know what I mean? But yeah, it ended up, there was one night to where we couldn't afford a hotel, right? Like we had got the money for a hotel. She had gotten it, but then she ended up spending it on crack. Right. And so we didn't, and I had to sleep. Like, luckily there was some girls at the hotel who were like, man, you can stay here. But then like the pimp came in early in the morning and kicked me out. And so I called my sister and she brought me to her house. She let me detox there. And then I went to the Salvation Army.
Yeah. What was that call like to your sister?
What was that call like?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. So, yeah, I called her, right? And I was like, hey, Kearney, will you come get me? And she's like, are you for real this time? Like, I mean, I'll come fucking get you, but, don't waste my fucking time type shit. Like that's one thing I can say about my sister, dude. Dude, she has been there for me. Yeah. Right? Like, Kearney, if you're watching this, I love you a lot. Thank you for all you've done for me. But yeah, dude, she has like always like stood by my side and, like she's the one who put the Salvation Army into my ear. She would call me, when the rest of my family, I don't want to say they forsake me, but we weren't keeping in touch. Right. Yeah. She would call me from time to time. How are you doing? There's the salvation. There's places for you. If you ever want some help, call me. Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely, it was a good thing. Like, it was hard to do, right? Like, I had to leave this girl that I thought I loved, right? Which there was really like nothing there, but whatever, right? So yeah, and I go out there and I shit myself. I go through all the DTs, and then I go to Salvation Army, right? And then that's where like my legitimate story begins. All this that I've been talking about is just to get to this point, right? Yeah. And so I go through there, and like, once again though, right, I can say it begins there, not because like I would like to say that was the last time that I used, but it wasn't. But I can say it begins there because that's where I realized that when the drugs are out of the picture, I'm not fixed, because this was a 6-month program, and I went through there, and I had like the esteemed job, it's funny, like, you go into here and I'm like, I know what I need. Yeah. I need A, B, and C, right? For me, it was, I needed my girlfriend back, I needed my job back, and I needed my family back, and I needed a place to live, right? Those were it. And then my girlfriend, my girlfriend, right? It's the same one. Yeah. So it's chaotic for me in there. I'm calling her. Sometimes I can get in touch with her. Sometimes I can't. We're supposed to meet, but she never shows up, type shit, right? Yeah. And so I'm like going crazy while I'm in there. But she ends up getting, what is it where you get where your heart, you get like Mercer to heart or whatever?
Yeah, endocarditis?
Endocarditis. She gets endocarditis, right?
Yeah. And so which is vegetation. It's a bacteria growth on your heart. Okay. On your typically on your valves.
Yeah. She had to get a valve replaced. Yeah. Actually. Yeah. And so, but she was out at Baptist in downtown, man. And it was like, dude, it was almost like a breath of fresh air for me that like she was there, and I knew where she was, and I was going and seeing her all the time. But the insanity of this shit, right? So she's there, right? And it's like, okay, she had that, the reason she went there was because she was feeling sick, but she had a piece of her heart went to her brain and she had a stroke, right? Yeah. So that's what ended her up in there. Yeah. And so she had like, well,
the vegetation on the heart went to her brain.
Whatever it was. Yeah. So whatever, thank you for clarifying that, because I always tell people a piece of the heart. Yeah. But I guess whatever's growing there.
Yeah, that's the major concern with it, is that breaks off the vegetation from the bacteria. Yeah. Breaks off and goes to your brain, causes strokes or numerous other stuff.
Yep. So that's what happened. That's why she ended up there. She had open heart surgery to, after like the vancomycin. Does that sound about right?
Vancomycin. Yeah. Antibiotic.
Yeah. It wasn't working, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why they had to take do the valve replacement. Mm-hmm. And so that was one day. And then the very next day she had brain surgery, right? Mm. It's crazy. And this is one of those things, like, you would think that it would be enough, And I get it though, being that I understand the mental obsession with it, how it's not enough, right? But dude, the doctor's straight up, if you use it again, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. That was the message, clear as day. She got it. She understood it. Because it was given to her every day. She was in there for like 3 months, Mm-hmm. And she got out. We kind of got back together. We got a place, right? So I'm back to this, right? I have the things that I needed, right? Like the girlfriend, right? I get her back. My family, I'm like, have a good relationship with them. I got a house, right? And then I get a job offer to go to Puerto Rico, right? So it's like all these things, man. And I'm like, I remember the graduation ceremony. My family took me and a buddy of mine that I met in there out to breakfast, and I was just like, man, I'm telling my buddy, I'm like, dude, this ain't good, man. This is not good. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't feel any fucking different, dude. I don't feel any different. Like, I still feel as bad as I did the first day that I came in here.
And were you exposed to 12-step programs?
So I was a little bit in there. Yes, I was exposed. I was working a program, but I wasn't, right?
No sponsor.
I had a sponsor. But I wasn't honest. I didn't think yet that I needed that. you know, but it was that whole, you know, environment, that whole exposure to that is what, that's why I'm huge on the seed. You know, we talked about it earlier. That seed, it's real. You know what I mean? Like the dude who may have the most fuck you when you're speaking to me look may be the one that the seed just plants on. You never know. You know, you never know where it may fall. Right. But I did have exposure to it, but not like I would like. That's why I ended up back in there. Right. Is because I wanted to like, dude, this is real. This is real. I want to come give it to y'all. You know what I mean? But yeah, so let's see. I get all that stuff back. I'm not any better, right? I guess that's where that question came. No, I wasn't working a program. I was only working quotation marks, working a program. Just to check the boxes on the outside, I was working the program, but not on the inside. And that's why I can say that nothing got fixed, right? And yeah, so I mean, you know, I remember I was trying to get my driver's license, and I went and I was telling Ron Sip, I won't say his whole thing, but everybody knows who he is. And I was there and I was talking to one of his counselors, and I was telling her, yeah, I'm going to go to Puerto Rico to work. And she was like, are you sure that's a good idea? And I'm like, lady, I got 6 months. Do you understand who, like, you know, like I got it all figured out. And dude, I say this anytime I share my story, I say this, right? I would have been willing to bet my kids' lives on the fact that I wasn't going to use in Puerto Rico. You know, that's how delusional I still was, right? And I would have absolutely been like, if I use, you can kill my, you know, I probably wouldn't have really done that. But that's just how convicted I felt about that. I didn't want to go back there. Even though I was miserable, I was still waiting. Like at any moment now, this non-miserableness is going to hit me. Or it's gonna, you know what I mean? Like at any moment, it's gonna get better because people my whole life have been telling me, if you quit using, it's gonna get better, right? And so I still had that, like, it's gonna happen. Just like when we're using, like, one day I'm gonna quit. You know what I mean? And that one day I'm on the other end now, waiting for, now that I have quit, waiting for this like peace to, but I still like not there, you know? And so all that, right? I end up going this house. My girlfriend, we move into this house like the day I have like 2 or 3 days before I'm going to Puerto Rico. I got to kick her out because she's using dope already. You know what I mean? And I'll just get to this, like, dude, she's not with us anymore, right? Exactly what they said was going to happen happened, right? She got right back into the same stuff that she was doing, and piece of the vegetation. Yeah, I got it right this time. A piece of the vegetation went to her brain and killed her. You know, I mean, is exactly, but that's the insanity of it, right? I know her thought wasn't, oh, I'm going to use and fuck it, I'm going to die. You know what I mean? Her thought was, man, I am not comfortable right now. I know what will make me feel comfortable, but I'm only going to do it this one time. Yeah. You know, and it's just what it turns into, right? That once it happens, we're gone, you know? So, are we good on time, man?
You're good, man.
Okay. Yeah. So I end up going to Puerto Rico, right? This is going to save me. This is going to fix me. And while I'm there, you know, I had a sponsor. I brought my big book, right? I did Big Books to AA book, right? I brought that. I actually had some literature on where meetings were in Puerto Rico, right?
Did you go to any meetings while you were here when you got out?
Maybe one, but it was like, dude, it was weird, you know, like at that point, like I'm still so worried about what people think. So I would like show up to the meeting, like either right when it's about to start or, you know, right after it starts. I would sit in the far corner and I would look around. I wasn't even really hearing the message because I'd be thinking that people were judging me. So I'd be judging them. Right. And then as soon as the meeting was over, I'd get up and I'd leave. Yeah. You know, and that's not what it's about. Right. It's about getting known and talking to people, getting connected. Yeah. And so it's hard for it to happen. Like people who think that the meetings are where it happens and they never get it, it's because the meetings aren't really where it happens. You know, like you don't get that, like the obsession relieved just from going to meetings.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So, yeah. So, but no, right? I was doing the meetings. It's all this like external stuff. But I say this, right? Like I wasn't getting the message. I must have been getting something, right?
Yeah.
Because look where I'm at today, you know?
Yeah.
And so I go down to Puerto Rico, and like I told you, it took me like 10 years to get fired from my job before, right? Of like accumulating and like building up and then being fed up with me. And I'm down there. And I remember, dude, like I would go with my buddies. Oh my God. It's like really just to start out the worst thing. Like my buddies who I haven't seen in all this 6 months, right? They know I'm clean. I go to pick one of them up to go to the airport. And he's like in his room with like an ounce of Coke. Just like, oh my God, we got to go now. And I'm like, what the fuck? I got my dad taking us right to the airport, and we end up missing our flight. It's just already starts off, right? I didn't do any Coke at that point, right? Yeah. But like, you know, I'm hanging out with him. He's like, gotta, you know, and so we go.
Hang on 1 second. Let me make sure my camera's on. I heard a little beep.
Yeah.
Sorry, technical difficulty. Go on.
All good, man.
So you going with your buddies?
Yeah, right. So we end up, and we go to pick him up, and then he makes us kind of late, and then we go to my other buddy's house, and he's like not even awake yet, hasn't even started packing. It's just like, you know, the same shit. I jump right back into it, right? This is not normal. Right. This is like my job stuff that I was doing. Thinking that somehow or another. So, but I still think I'm going to be okay. Right. We go to the airport, miss our flight. The company buys us another flight. They're hanging out drinking, and I'm just hanging out with them. Like everything's good. We get to Puerto Rico, work. Right. First couple days are okay, you know, but like after work, we'd go hang out back at the hotel, and like these dudes would go down to the bar, and I'd be like bored in my room, and I'd be like, I have that book and I had my sponsor's number, and I'd be like, man, I should call them. But no, I didn't. Right. And then like a couple days, you know, and then I'm hanging out down at the bar, and I remember we actually went out to a bar, like, but I'm not going to drink. Right. But I'm going to go hang out at the fucking bar with y'all. Right. And dude, it was crazy, right? Like, how did I feel, right? I've described it a couple of times already. I'm around people. I haven't changed anything inside of me, you know? I'm fucking uncomfortable in this situation, right? People around me, they're drinking, they're talking, and I just don't want to talk. I feel like people are thinking I'm weird because I'm not talking, whatever. You know, I can't even fucking hardly speak your language. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or y'all ain't hardly speaking mine. I tried maybe a little tiny bit of Spanish, but yeah. And so it just, I felt really, really, really uncomfortable. And that thought came, you know, like, oh man, just have a beer. If you have a beer, at least it'll be in your hand to where you can like feel comfortable, and you just have one and just nurse it. Right. Dude, before that night was over with, I had an 8-ball of cocaine in my pocket because I was at a bar in Puerto Rico. It's easy to find coke there. You know what I mean? Wow. And it was like, dude, it was off to the races. You know, It didn't take long. I ended up, you know, like finding a trap house in Puerto Rico, and I'm getting, you know, heroin and crack and coke, and my work, they hate me. They absolutely hate me, man. We had taken lunch and going out and drinking beers at lunch, and like doing a shot of heroin and coke, and you know, it's and so to say, right, like what took me 10 years to do took me 2 weeks to do again. You know what I mean? I got fired, right? Yeah. Obviously, thank God I got fired. This is kind of.
I want to talk about real quick when you was talking about the relapse, though, because I've shared this on the podcast before, and those who have, may struggle with the thought of using or something like that. Like, I feel like the disease of addiction, or at least in my experience, has always been, like it'll talk you all the way into using. Like, just one is okay, just a beer is okay, just nurse it, and then as soon as you do it, or as soon as I would do it, it'd say, "Look what you done. You know, you piece of crap. You might as well. You didn't threw it all away now." You know what I mean? Like, it kind of, for me, it was always like, I would trick myself into that, you know, like the disease concept. I would trick myself into saying that, like, oh, just this or just that, and then as soon as I do it, it'd be like, well, you've already messed up now. You describe your experience like that, kind of?
Yeah.
For you to go that fast from like a beer to like,
yeah, you know, it's. They talk about the mental obsession and then like the phenomenon of craving for us, right? And so 100%, right? Like that you described it to a T, to where like I always call it believing the lie, right? Like if I knew, like, because you have these moments of clarity, like all up to this point for 6 months, I knew, don't use. If you use, it's going to be like it was every other time, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, you know, the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Like a thought comes in, a lie, as I like to say, it gets, you know, like disguised as a truth, and it comes through, and then you believe it, right? Because if you were to tell me that this table is blue, I would never believe you, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ever go tell somebody else that it's blue, right? Mm-hmm. And yesterday, the thought came in that a drink or a drug was a good idea. I didn't believe that. It was a lie. I didn't believe it. So therefore, if I know it's a lie, I'm not going to believe it, right? And so it's somehow like the thought has a way of being disguised as truth, you know, to where like, oh, a drink's a good idea right now.
Yeah.
You know, and it just like, you know, so I'm believing a lie. And then once that happens, you know, take the one drink, right? The phenomenon of craving, it is like anybody who's out there and they're addicts, alcoholics, whatever, watching this, and, you know, and when I describe, they'll know, right? Like you're miserable, whatever. You take a drink and all bets of everything else in the world are off, right? Mm-hmm. You want to call it the fuck it's, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter anymore. There's only one thing that matters, mm-hmm. you know, at that point. And yes, I fully experienced that. Yeah. Like, I mean, you know, because 30 seconds before I believed that lie, the same thought came through, but I didn't believe it, you know? But at one time, it came in, it hit all the right stuff in me that made me think that it would be a good idea.
And then after you did it, that voice turned on you.
Yeah. There was no voice. That voice wasn't there anymore. Mm. Right? After you do it, the voice, in my opinion, what I experienced, it was gone. You know, and I have another like kind of relapse thing to where I had worked some of a program before. So that voice was still there. But at this time, I hadn't really worked any program. Right? So the voice was gone. It was 100% gone. It was just, you know, the disease, and I'll call it a disease, the disease of addiction. The synapses, whatever in my brain quit firing correctly. You know what I mean? And I could only focus like a pit bull on a ham bone on using.
Yeah.
And that was it. That my vision narrowed at that point, right? Like I have some bigger vision up to that point to be able to have a lie come in that you shouldn't use, you know what I mean, or whatever. And that's a bigger vision than just I'm on it, I'm gonna get, you know.
So you get fired from your job.
So I ended up getting exactly. I ended up getting fired from my job. And then I'll share this too real quick, man. I think this is a pretty interesting story. So I'm down there. This is like my first God moment. I didn't realize it was a God moment till later, right? I'm down there and I'm like, you know, I'm just, it's crazy. I find this trap house, right? And I have this like Uber driver take me, and he's like, where are you going? I'm like, right here, you know? And he's like, oh no, we shouldn't be here. I'm like in some crazy neighborhood in Puerto Rico. And then I get out to go up to get the shit from the dealers, right? And the Uber driver leaves me, dude. Oh my God. In the middle of like this crazy neighborhood, you know? And then he reports me on Uber, so I can't get an Uber. right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I need another Uber. And they're like, no, the driver said, look, Drogos, and you were going to get drugs, so you can't have an Uber, right? I don't even know if I have an Uber account to this day, right? And but this is like the God. So there's this place called La Perla in Puerto Rico, like in San Juan, and it's like, dude, like I don't know if it's legal, but like for some reason the cops don't go down there, and you've just got people all in the roads with like the tackle boxes, the clear tackle boxes that people have, and they got drugs in them, like coke, hair, anything, dude. And so I had to call, like I'm flipping through the yellow pages, like thank God there were still yellow pages, right? And a driver, and I call him, and I'm like, hey man, can you come pick me up and take me to La Perla? I need to get something from my whatever. So, or to San Juan. And so I go there, and then he parks up like at the top of the street. I walk down, I come back up, and I'm like, okay, we can go back now. And so we're on the way back, right? And I'm just like, oh yeah, I just got coke, whatever, da 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 da. And he's like, oh well, next time you want it, I know a better place, da da da. But I'd gotten fired already, and I needed a ride to the airport. So I was like, oh, normally I would take an Uber, but I couldn't take an Uber. So I was like, hey man, can you come back and pick me up at this time and take me to the airport? And he's like, yeah, I'll come get you. And we won't stop by La Perla. We'll stop by some. So he comes. So I go back in, I do my shit, right? And I load up, like, I'm like, all right, I got to leave in like, 30 minutes or whatever. Let me fucking blast one off, and then I'll be gone. And then, I wake up to this dude pouring water on me and fucking smacking me, and the security guard, because like where I was staying at, it was a gated community, and I've had this happen to where if Uber drivers come and you're not like in third, like come on in, I'm on the phone with security, they turn around and leave, right? This guy came and I didn't answer the phone. Dude, I had like 25 missed calls from this guy, right? And he begged, and he told the people in there, he was like, look, something is wrong.
Yeah.
I need to get yeah. I need to get back there and, like go check on this dude. Like I know he needs a ride to the airport. So he sat there for like an hour and talked security into letting them come back. He got in their golf cart and they drove back together. And I was like literally in the front yard, like blue foaming, like, and so
wow,
yeah,
it saved your life.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd have come back from it, maybe I wouldn't have. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah. And it was just whatever. Let me get my stuff. Oh, I still haven't packed. Oh, we're late. Okay, and yeah, so it's kind of crazy. I didn't realize how much of a God moment it was until later on. Like when I get clean. But yeah, so, that was pretty much the end of it, right? Like I came home. That was my last shot of heroin right there, right? An overdose. What do you know, right? Yeah. This is as good as it's going to get for me ever, and I know that. And if I were to ever go back out, that's exactly what would be there for me. And so, yeah, I get back, and then I have to get my driver's license. So I end up back at that same place that told me that I shouldn't go. And I remember being there, dude, and I'm like, man, I'm just pissed off at the world. Like, I didn't necessarily, like, I was drinking and smoking, right? Wasn't using like hard stuff, because I still had that place that I bought, but I couldn't afford it. So I ended up moving back in with my parents. And dude, it's like, I didn't really, and I felt like this a lot of times, but I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die. Like, I just didn't care. Like, I was going through life as like, blah, like I had no drive to do anything because it just like, I felt like I was to a point to where it didn't matter. I was never going to get right. You know what I mean? Like I went through the rehab. It didn't work. I tried a 12-step program. It didn't work. So I just felt like, I was that one that it couldn't work for. And I was fucking miserable, dude. I was so miserable, man. And I end up going back to this place and I'm in there and there's like people that are like, it's an IOP, an intensive outpatient program. And there's like people that are like excited to be there and, oh, recovery is so great. And I'm like, man, fuck these people. Like this is bullshit. Y'all just trying to get your license like me or something, And it's funny because the guy took me in and he's like, I didn't have money to pay for it. I was court ordered to it. And he's like, you can come through. You can, if you graduate the program, good. I'll give you, I'm not signing your paper until you pay me. But I'm in there and I'm like, I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm still drinking. I failed a piss test for alcohol. I didn't even know they had those. And he's like, he asked me to do something, and I don't remember exactly how it led up to it. I was supposed to go to a meeting or something, and I didn't go. And he was like, told me in the middle of class and like in front of all these people who I'm trying to act cool for and tough, he's like, you can leave. He's like, and he's cussing. He's like, you can get the fuck out of here. I don't need your money. You can leave. I don't need your type in here. And I'm like, I stand up. I remember I had these workbooks. I slammed the workbook, and he's like, good, get the fuck out of here. Bye. And I'm like, and dude, I like one more moment of clarity, right? It was in the middle of July. It's hot as fuck outside. I'm there to get my driver's license. So where am I going to go? I'm going to walk, right? And I'm like, fuck, man, I don't even have a ride. And so I sat back down, and he's like, okay, if you're going to stay, you got to do this, this, and this. Right. And I'm like, oh, fuck, what do I have to do? I had to go to a meeting. I had to get a sponsor, and I had to make 5 phone calls a day. That was what I had to do, dude. That's what he told me that I had to do if I wanted to stay in this class. And I'm like, all right, man, whatever, And so like I ended up getting a sponsor who's still my sponsor to this day. It was comfortable to me because he happened to be there that day. And it was the only person who I knew that I called. And I was like, hey, you want to sponsor me? And so I did, and it's working out great, right? And then I went to this meeting, right? That there was like people there, I was always going to this clubhouse, and it wasn't necessarily like my flavor of people, right? But I went to this meeting, and dude, they're like my age, but they're like a little more successful, but they sounded like they had been like more fucked up than me,
Yeah.
So I was like, man, this is, And then I started making these 5 phone calls. Like I got some people's numbers. I had somebody that was picking me up, right? Which is kind of a blessing in a sense too, right? Like I had somebody who was going to the meeting who was picking me up before the meeting and taking me to the meeting. And then he would hang out after the meeting. So I had to hang out after the meeting, and he would get there early. So I'd have to get there early. And then I would ride. And then I'd also have this conversation with him. So I became like really good friends with this guy. Funny how the things like start to, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right. Yeah. But I wasn't ready at the time. Honestly, I didn't think I was. It was more of like, fuck you, I'm doing this to get my license. But right. So I do these things. This guy, the IOP guy, I hated him, dude. I hated him. Like everything about him. He would call people out, be rude in class, call me out, like got on to me about I'm telling him lies and he's not believing them. Fuck him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he's not buying them. And dude, like about a week after I started doing this stuff, dude, I just remember going in there and I walked up to him and I shook his hand. I was like, dude, thank you, man. Thank you. You like, just by the way that you got on to me, you had me do this. I have changed. Like I felt a real change. Like I wanted to do this stuff now. I could see a foreseeable future at this point to where there really is happiness beyond drugs and alcohol. Right. So, and I would like to even say like, oh, that was the moment. I mean, I had a relapse from that too. That's what I was kind of saying before. I got 23 days, dude. I ended up doing 23 days. And that's a long time for me, right? At that point, like we were talking about the eternity. Yeah. Like I remember this day. I'll never forget that 23 days that I didn't drink and I didn't use a drug. You know what I mean? Like, dude, that was amazing. And not being in a rehab, not being in jail, like actually because I wanted to. Yeah. Right. And dude, I remember I went over to a buddy's house, my sponsor. I remember telling him, he's like, well, I'm not saying that you can't ever hang out with these friends, but maybe wait until you get a little bit more recovery. Wait till we work the steps before you go hang out with them. And I'm like, whatever. I was on the pink cloud, as they say, like nothing, man, come on. I got this. I'm with God, Yeah. And I went over there and I ended up, I had a drink, dude. And I remember like I took that drink and dude, it was like the belly full of beer and a head full of AA. Oh man. And so luckily the relapse only lasted like 3 or 4 days. You know what I mean? But it was a miserable 3 or 4 days. Like I'm literally trying to drink and smoke and whatever just to not feel bad about the fact that like I had this and I gave it away, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I guess my last drink was September 4th. So then September 5th. And yeah, that's when, yeah, really that's where my story starts. Right. Because, you know, I know that, like the whole talk that I gave was like my history, you know, and I won't like let it run too far, but like the whole reason to even have that talk is to lead people into life can be very, very, very good. You know, like identification with the fact that I was just as fucked up as some of y'all, not as fucked up as a lot of y'all. You know, I understand that it's not our circumstances that get us there. It's, you know, our way of thinking, right? And I always like to say, right, it's a program, it's a solution-based program, right? Doesn't matter what brings us there, what drug, alcohol, whatever, right? As long as we get there, the solution is the same for everybody. So yeah, you know, I literally got, you know, like I started doing the program, man, and the miracles, dude, they started happening, you know, they really did, man. Just like, I think, you know, the first miracle I feel like is when I was out to breakfast and I was hanging out with people and I didn't give a shit I wasn't thinking about what they were thinking about me, you know? Dude, that's hardcore for me.
Yeah.
That is, man. That's next level for me because that was what always took me out, you know? Being in that situation and just not able to feel comfortable, you know? And I feel I'm comfortable right now, you know? Like, I'm happy to be here, to be doing this, you know? Like, it's not to say that I don't get uncomfortable in life now, but I have this program, this design for living, this way of life that I have decided, you know, that I've been doing and other people have been walking it too, right? And so when I get uncomfortable, I know that there's a way out, right? I know that like, it's okay. Like, you know, there's all types of things. I'm not going to get into that, but I do get uncomfortable sometimes still. And I have a way to deal with it now, right? Yeah. And that way that I deal with it is not causing me chaos. That's for sure. Yeah. How I used to deal with it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think what the word we use to describe that feeling a lot of time is freedom. You know, it's like that, the mental, it's not just freedom from not using, it's just like that freedom from the mental obsessions, the uncomfortability, like all of that stuff that comes along with like the disease way of thinking, you know, and you get that freedom and like you said, then you want to go back and you be like, this shit works, you know, you got to give it a try, but you have to like commit, you have to, the commit isn't the, I'm going to do it. The commit is like the surrender, like I have a major problem and I need help, you know, and allowing people to help you.
Yeah, I think that, right? Like it's a huge hurdle to get over. Like your whole life, we have this concept, like a self-concept, and we like, this is good, this is bad. You know, I'm going to agree with you, I'm going to disagree with you, right? And that same concept is a concept that like leads us to believe that like we can fix ourselves, you know? And it's a huge hurdle to like admit that you might be wrong. You know? I feel like that's the hardest thing. Or that somebody else might actually have a better idea than you. Yeah. You know, that like my whole way of thinking, my whole life might not be the best way. It's hard. It's very hard to like, to understand that and to accept that, you know, that shit, everything that I've been doing for the last, I was 34 when I got clean, right? Everything that I've been doing for the last 34 years. And this is what I had to do. I had to tell myself, it might not be wrong, but it might not be right either. Let's explore some options. You know, let's just see if there's like something else out there. Yeah. Cause you get stuck in that. And that's the, you know, that same mind that keeps you from like accepting this, you know, hurdle, being able to get over it, is the exact same mind that tells you it's okay to take that first drink or that first drug, you know?
Yeah. When you get some time clean, some time clean or sober, you're like, wow, that's a horrible decision. It's like that. What do they call it? Like post nut syndrome or something. Like, oh my god, what did I do?
Yeah. It's cool to look back on and laugh now, and hopefully, like, people, get stuff out of it and get what we have, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's why you're doing this, is to give it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because it's real.
It is.
It is real.
Yeah.
And it does work. But it's hard to see that. I go back to the Salvation Army now. I take meetings in there, which but to explain it to listeners or whatever. And I always make this joke, and it's so true, right? Because the 12 steps are on the wall, right? And when you're in that, like, they're in their like first month of I don't even call it recovery. They're in their like first month of being in some place where they don't want to be, but it got so bad that was the only place they could go, right? And the problems of life seem so big at that point, right? Like, my fucking girlfriend's screwing somebody and whatever. If I just went out to go get butter and didn't come back for a week because I was smoking crack and I spent all the money we had saved up for a car or whatever it is, like, those are problems, and it's like, when you're like, try to tell people that that's the solution, and you point to like the 12 steps on the wall, and they like,
fuck you.
That's the for real fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. This dude is. Now I know what insane looks like.
Yeah.
But man, it's just like, you gotta. I don't know, man. It's like you almost wish that you could just like give people a little bit, like, bro, this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is what it is. Yeah, but I was the same, and we all were, right? Like, I was so skeptical about any 12-step program.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny, when I was in Salvation Army and I was miserable, right? And people were, so there was 12-step there, right? And they were trying to like give me, 12-step, and it was crazy. Like, I knew I felt bad, but I wasn't sure what I needed, but I was 100% sure what I didn't need. And that's fucking 12-step. I don't know what I need, but I know exactly what I don't need. And that's skepticism so many people have about it.
Yeah. I think mine was like, when I came into the rooms, I really wanted it to work. I wanted this to be true. I didn't really believe it would be, but I really wanted it, because I had exhausted all of their efforts, and I wanted to not live in that misery no more. And thank God it actually did work, though, but it's a slow process. The first thing you got to do is obviously take the drugs out of it, and then you got to start working on some other things. And I think that's what, the 12-step fellowships help. A lot of people do. Not that that's the only thing, but it definitely worked for me. And of course it worked for you.
Yeah. And I think, the fellowship aspect of it is huge too, right? Like I was saying in the beginning, that my dad was like, man, I wish I had done that, right? It's because like I have well, for starters, beyond the fellowship, like I have a routine in life now, right? That I can like be accountable. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I might have been a couple minutes late this morning, but I'm going to be there and I'm going to be on time, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can rely on me to do what I say I'm going to do, right? But then like, the friends, like, I didn't even know what friends were before recovery.
Not real friends.
It was somebody that I either had something that you needed or you had something that I need, right?
Yeah.
But dude, like, the fellowship part, like, I have fun now, right? Like, I have friends. I have people that I talk to just to talk to. That's it. Why are you talking? Dude, because I'm concerned that you're doing okay, as you're concerned I am, and if we don't talk, we want, like, it's the relationship is, so that in itself is huge, right? But if that, I'm sure that doesn't sound appealing to people who are like, they're, should I do this or should I not do this, right? That doesn't sound appealing. But like, the fun part, right? Like, we're always doing stuff, man. I have a trip planned. Well, we did the scalloping, right? I don't think that you come to that, but that's with like a whole recovery event deal. We do the scalloping. That's like turned into one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like right around, it's always Labor Day weekend. So it's like right around my date. Right.
Yeah.
But, and then I'm going to, Colorado. I'm taking a week off. I'm going to Colorado, and it's with guys from recovery. Right. And we just go out there, like we go hiking, we get an Airbnb, like, things that, dude, I wouldn't even, these types of things, I would have talked about them. I would have sat there and like snorted lines with you and drank at the bar with you and talked about how I want to do this and how I'm going to do it. And I never would have done it.
Yeah.
Just like fairy tale shit to me, just to talk it and keep talking it. Dude, now it's like, if I'm, I'm not going to be snorting lines. We're going to be talking like whatever it is, right? Whatever reason, if I'm with a friend and we talk about wanting to do something, do we do it?
Yeah.
This is what we do. We put our minds, okay, we set out times, we plan it accordingly, and we find a time that it works for everybody, and we do it.
Yeah.
Last year, my buddy and I and Ashley went too. We went and hiked the Art Loeb Trail, which is a trail. We backpacked it up in North Carolina, and we saw it was hard on all trails. And dude, man, I felt so bad for Ashley and her friend because it was hard as fuck, dude. It was so hard, but it was a great time.
Yeah, it's a memory,
dude. It's beyond a memory.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
Yeah, no, I love that. That is a huge thing, having fun in recovery and just enjoying life, without the use of some type of substance.
Yeah, and I do want to say this too, right? Because being comfortable in all situations, right? Like I named some like big things. Oh, I went here and I did this, right? I have just as much fun when I go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Like when I go out to dinner with the guys, with the girl, whatever, and we're just shooting the shit. Dude, that is fun to me. Like, I love that now. I'm just like enjoying life. What can I offer to life now? And it's like, I love that now I can live by that versus like, what can I take from life? What does life have for me? Because I have to be here,
Yeah. This is what I mean by like that freedom. It's just, you're so free.
The freedom is a great word to describe.
You go out to dinner and you're just like talking shit and like laughing all night and having a good time. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, man. It takes a lot of courage to share your experience, strength, and hope, and I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Cool.